I hung it by the entrance. Take care of it for a week.
Huh? Take care of what? My usually selfish sister-in-law suddenly called me. She said she put her baby in an eco bag and left it at our doorstep. I moved out yesterday. As soon as she heard my response, she started yelling.
I'm overseas. Find it right away.
I hurriedly drove to the house they used to live in, but the baby was nowhere to be found. I have to call the police. With trembling hands, I took out my phone, and what I learned next was truly terrifying. I married my husband, Logan, 10 years ago, and we lived together. We wanted children, but it didn't happen, and before I knew it, I was 38. My sister-in-law, Isabel, 5 years younger than me, took advantage of me. Her husband is a CEO, and mine worked for his company. Using her position, she would often ask me to run errands for her, just a 10-minute drive away, which became a daily routine. Moreover, since she got pregnant, she started summoning me more frequently, even making me clean the house and cook dinner. Even though I'm someone who likes taking care of people, I finally complained to my husband.
I'll talk to her soon. Sorry, but could you take care of things for a while?
He must be used by Isabel's husband too, so I thought, and reluctantly, whenever Isabel called, I went to her house.
My belly's heavy. Hey, Mia, instead of being lost in thought, pass me the TV remote.
Huh? But you.
What?
She's only 3.5 months pregnant, but her belly seems big. However, since she has always been on the chubby side, I refrained from saying anything. It might be better for an easier delivery if you move a bit yourself?
You've never been pregnant, so don't give me advice.
Exactly what I expected her to say.
This child is our heir, so raising it carefully shouldn't be a problem.
She lounged on the couch with an air of superiority, gradually wearing down my nerves and increasing my stress. But when I questioned if it was possible to know the gender at 3.5 months, she suddenly got angry.
You're so old-fashioned. With modern technology, you can know the gender easily.
Listening to her insist as if it were obvious, I couldn't muster a rebuttal and just listened to her complaints with disgust.
You're jealous because you can't get pregnant, aren't you? Seriously bad for prenatal care. If this child doesn't survive, it's your fault.
Eventually, she began to threaten me, using her unborn child as a shield. Feeling suffocated being around her, I quickly finished my tasks and returned home with a sigh day after day. When I told my husband about it after work,
Just a little more patience.
I was left feeling frustrated and confused. Feeling burdened by such emotions, I made various excuses to avoid her calls. However, when Isabel complained to my husband that I was being mean to her, I found myself at a loss. Despite my attempts to decline, she kept calling incessantly, not listening to my reasons for not going. Every time I answered, her piercing voice echoed in my ears.
Mia, do you mind if your husband's position at work gets worse? You haven't forgotten that my husband is the CEO, have you?
My usually gentle and mild-mannered husband. Determined not to cause him trouble, I had no choice but to go to her house. As time passed, Isabel gave birth to a boy 1 month earlier than expected, as she had planned. Moreover, the baby weighed over 4,000 g. Isn't he too big for being born early? I wondered, but since I had never experienced pregnancy, I accepted that such things might happen. Naming the child Lucas, as expected, Isabel called me as soon as she was discharged and entrusted the baby's care to me.
Think of it as practicing childcare and fulfilling your role as his nursemaid. You never know if you'll conceive yourself.
Though I was annoyed with her, I thought it must be tough on her right after giving birth, so whenever she called, I visited her home. Plus, The baby was so adorable. Lucas, you're such a good boy. Grow up healthy. Even changing diapers and giving baths for the first time, I felt no discomfort when looking at the child's face. However, after 3 months, my sister-in-law started leaving Lucas at my house more and more often. What's wrong? You dressed up?
Right now, my husband has an important dinner with his work colleagues, and I'm going with him. So, look after Lucas for me.
I tried my best to take care of the baby, thinking that the president's wife would have a lot of work to do once she got well. After this, however, Isabel came to deposit Lucas more and more often.
Take care of him today.
As expected, that's too much, isn't it? You are not accompanying your husband, are you?
My husband has an important business meeting, and I'm helping him. You should cooperate too.
She raised her voice, forced the child on me, and quickly went out. Wearing such a frilly dress, is she useful? Despite my doubts, I couldn't just leave the baby in front of me, so I took care of him as best as I could. However, that day was different from usual. When I opened the diaper, Lucas had diarrhea. He had no fever and seemed energetic, so I made the room warmer than usual to prevent him from getting cold and kept an eye on him. In the evening, when Isabel came to pick up Lucas and I told her about it, she came at me in a loud voice.
You're useless. Did you feed Lucas something to make him sick?
Denying her accusations, I shook my head, and just then, my husband returned home.
What's all the commotion at the entrance?
Hi Logan, I trusted her to look after Lucas, but she made him sick.
She sounded so meek, completely unlike the person who usually beat me with harsh words, and started crying. He is trying to understand her feelings.
Mia hasn't had any childcare experience. It was a bit cold today, so maybe that's why he caught a cold. I'll apologize, so please forgive her.
While he defended me, I couldn't understand why I had to apologize for something I didn't do, so I bid farewell to Isabel and Lucas with a perplexed feeling. Starting to prepare dinner in a dejected mood, he suddenly put on a serious face and took out an A4 envelope from his bag.
Mia, I have something important to discuss. Can you sit down for a moment?
Showing the documents spread out on the table and hearing the words he uttered, I couldn't believe it at first. Moreover, it was something I had never imagined, so I was taken aback. However, seeing his determination, I understood that it was serious, and I nodded quietly. A week later, while unpacking cardboard boxes, my sister-in-law called.
I left him hanging at your entrance. Take care of him for a week.
Huh? Take care of what?
Don't play dumb. It's obvious it's our child. You've already let him in, right?
She didn't believe what I was saying. But when I responded with a serious tone, she suddenly started to panic. Surprisingly, it had been 5 hours since she left Lucas behind. Moreover, I found out she was currently on a trip abroad, which shocked me. Despite being called spring, that day remained chilly, with temperatures not rising at all.
Go get Lucas right away. Hurry up.
More worried about the baby than angry at her attitude, I immediately drove off. An hour later, I arrived at our old house and checked the entrance, but there was no sign of Lucas. No eco bag either. Why? I searched the yard thoroughly and asked the neighbors, but nobody knew anything. No sound of crying either. What's going on? Since there was no sign of him continuing to search, I thought I had no choice but to call the police, so I picked up my phone. Then, I received a call from someone. Huh? What do you mean? Upon hearing the surprising contents, I was at a loss for words. After ending the call, unable to organize my thoughts, I walked around in a daze, when my sister-in-law called.
He was in the eco bag hanging at your entrance, right?
Oh, that. He's nowhere to be found.
Seriously? Oh no, this is bad. If Lucas isn't found, my husband will divorce me, and it'll be your fault.
Even over the phone, I could tell how flustered she was by her trembling voice. Since things couldn't continue like this, I told her I would report it to the police and have them search, but she flatly refused.
If you do that, it'll become a big deal, and my husband will find out.
Isn't Lucas more important than your appearance?
Lucas is nothing more than a tool for extracting money from him.
Upon hearing those words, I was shocked by her selfishness. Ignoring me completely, I could hear her talking to someone with her. After a while, she said,
"This trip is ruined,"
and uttered even more unbelievable words.
"I couldn't get a flight today, but I'll return tomorrow, so don't you dare tell my husband. If you find Lucas, contact me immediately."
I'll do everything I can. Upon hearing my response, she said,
"That's fine then,"
and hung up. The next day, as I waited for my sister-in-law at the airport, she appeared arm in arm with a man. And as soon as she saw me, my sister-in-law approached me with a sour expression.
"Mia, what are you doing here? Did you find Lucas by any chance?"
"I came to tell you something important. Lucas is out of your reach now. It's too late." With a downcast and sorrowful expression, I told her that, and she started to panic.
"You're lying, right? What should I tell my husband? You useless woman. Go find a similar baby right away."
"What are you saying? Are you even a mother?" She suggested finding a similar baby around the same age as Lucas to deceive her husband. Anger and sorrow welled up inside me, and I couldn't help but cry. However, as soon as tears ran down my cheeks, I wiped them away and looked her straight in the eyes. Instead of looking for a similar child, talk to this person. As I said that, a woman who had been hiding behind me with her hood pulled up showed her face. Then, not only Isabel but also the man she was with began to tremble violently. Yes, that woman was the wife of her affair partner. The man, too shocked to move, was approached by his wife.
"You scumbag. I'll straighten you out."
And she yelled at him outright, to which the affair partner responded with a pitiful voice.
"Please forgive me."
However, his wife would never forgive him, and she told him to grit his teeth,
"Bite down hard,"
and gave him a thorough slap on the face then and there. The force was so intense that people walking by couldn't help but stop. Leaving the man who collapsed while rubbing his cheek as he was, she turned to face my sister-in-law. Then, Isabel paled, and in a panic, she began to speak rapidly.
Don't get the wrong idea. We don't have that kind of relationship. Huh? Mia, stop recording with your phone."
Despite trying to cover up, my sister-in-law got angry at me for holding up my phone to capture the situation. However, I remained calm. "Then how do you explain this?" From the envelope I had brought, I took out emails and messages exchanged between my sister-in-law and her affair partner, as well as intimate photos I found on social media. She forcibly took them from me and glared at me.
"You're disgusting. Sneaking around looking them up. How did you find out this man's wife's contact information?"
"I happen to know the wife here.
"What?"
When I saw her affair partner on social media, I thought he looked familiar. Upon recollection, I realized he was the husband of a woman who works at my regular hair salon. He too was a hairstylist, but while his wife managed multiple salons and was skilled, I had heard stories that her husband did nothing but roam around without working. The classic case of a good-for-nothing husband. When I went to tell his wife that Isabel and he were going on a cheating trip,
I've had enough. I'm joining in too.
She said, and she came along with me. Usually gentle and kind, her wife, when angry, was honestly quite frightening. Unable to stand up to his wife, the Playboy hairstylist kept pleading.
Please don't divorce me.
But all he did was keep asking her, while I felt her determination as she never nodded. Also, Lucas is the affair partner's child, right?
Huh? You're saying that without any evidence.
But isn't it suspicious? Born a month early and weighing over 4,000 g, that's too big. Are you lying about the weeks? As I said this, I showed her documents from a different envelope. One was the maternity record book. Additionally, there was evidence that her husband wasn't Lucas's father.
You're pulling dirty tricks. But tearing this apart means it never existed.
Isabel snatched the DNA test papers from me, tore them up on the spot, and looked smug as if she had accomplished something. She probably thought she could get away with it like this, but she was wrong. It's better to talk directly with the person who gave you these documents. When I turned my phone screen towards Isabel, she widened her eyes and mouth so much that it seemed like she was about to scream. And for good reason, because on the screen was her husband. I wasn't recording, I was video calling with her husband.
Isabel, lying about going to your parents' house and all, you deceived me.
Well, you see,
repeating words that didn't make any sense and staggering her. Standing in front of her, I slowly spoke. I'll explain everything step by step, so open your ears wide and listen carefully. A week ago, her husband found emails between her and her affair partner, so he suspected something and had a DNA test done with Lucas. At the same time, he lied to Isabel about going on a business trip for a week to investigate her actions. Isabel immediately contacted her affair partner by email and booked a trip overseas online. She was so panicked that she didn't even think about erasing that history. On the day of the trip, Isabel put Lucas in an eco bag, hung it on the entrance of the house where I lived, and skipped to the station humming a tune. Your husband, who was following you, was the one who rescued Lucas. If Lucas had been left there for over 5 hours, who knows what would have happened?
Huh? So, Lucas is alive?
Yeah. He's with me right now.
When I couldn't find Lucas and was about to call the police, I got a call from her husband. Surprised, I went to his house immediately to hear the details. Lucas was lively, playing with a rattle, and waving his arms and legs. That's when I remembered he was born a month early but weighed over 4,000 g. I reluctantly accepted it at the time, but I still found it suspicious. With her husband's consent, I searched her belongings and found the maternity record book. Upon seeing its contents, I realized she had been lying about the baby's gestational age. Why did Isabel do this? When I traced back to the actual timing of her pregnancy, it coincided with her husband being away on a long business trip for about 2 months. In other words, he couldn't possibly be Lucas's father. Realizing she had gotten pregnant with her affair partner's child, Isabel probably thought she could get away with a month's difference, but the unexpectedly big baby threw a wrench in her plans. So, she became suspicious of me. That's when the affair partner, whose child was now exposed, started apologizing to his wife, banging his head on the floor in supplication. However, his wife coldly said,
From now on, I'll live on my strength.
And slammed the divorce papers right there. She kicked away the begging cheater and left without a shred of doubt or hesitation. Meanwhile, my sister-in-law's husband spoke up too.
Of course. I'm divorcing you. Go be with that man over there.
No way. I just liked his face. He's broke, too.
You're only with me for the money, aren't you?
Struck a nerve. My sister-in-law struggled to respond. You said Lucas is just a tool to get money from him.
Stop talking nonsense.
I heard yesterday's phone conversation from Mia.
As a precaution, I had recorded our conversation to prevent Isabel from wriggling out of it. Isabel's husband, who had been silently listening to our exchange, turned red, with deep wrinkles forming on his forehead. Upon hearing the shocking truth, my sister-in-law seemed to tremble slightly. But then she remembered something and glanced at her phone screen.
Well, if Isabel came out unscathed, it's all good, right? Besides, even if there's no blood connection, I gave birth, so Lucas is practically your child, isn't he?
Both Isabel's husband and I couldn't help but simultaneously exclaim. Excuse me? My sister-in-law, seeing us like that, probably thought she had dodged it well, placing her hand on her hip with a smug look. Her husband, however, simply said, "It's over," and hung up.
Hey, why would you do that?
I did everything you asked me to, didn't I? Wasn't it to your satisfaction? She tried calling her husband from her phone, but he rejected the call, refusing to connect. More importantly, Isabel, did you know that leaving Lucas in the eco bag is a crime? As I showed her the screen of my phone, illustrating the severity of her actions, she immediately began trembling and slumped to the ground. Isabel, we're done here too. Goodbye. With nothing left to say, I sent her a cold stare and walked away, but I felt a chill down my spine. When I looked back, she had a terrifying expression, her eyes narrowed and her brows twitching.
I'll tell your husband to you. It's because of you you moved without telling me, and now this mess.
The decision to move, to escape being manipulated by you, was my husband's. And of course, he knows everything about this incident. He won't ever see Isabel again. Feeling abandoned by the only ally she thought she had, she broke down in loud sobs right then and there. Even as I've recounted all this, there's not a single word about Lucas. How selfish can one be? This is no time for tears. Go get Lucas right away.
If I'm getting divorced, I don't need the baby.
What kind of person are you? Unforgivable. Remember those words forever. Lucas will never return to you, no matter what. After bidding farewell to my utterly hopeless her, I walked away with a determination in my heart. Later, I reported her abandonment of the baby to the police. Though Lucas was quickly rescued, the act was deemed so atrocious that Isabel was very angry with the facing a divorce from her husband and being ostracized by her own family. She ended up alone. Isabel, who demanded a 1.5 million yen compensation each from her husband and her affair partner's wife, borrowed money from her affair partner to pay it off. However, since the company they borrowed from was shady, she's been forced to work in dark places to repay the debt. I'm determined to raise Lucas as my child. When I told my husband about it, he gladly accepted. Oh, I almost forgot to mention, I'm also expecting a new life. I'll cherish these children and ensure they live freely and happily. How did you find this story? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.